ready to dive deep into IELTS listening.
Yeah, let's do it.
I know, test prep isn't exactly a beach vacation.
Right.
But this is about conquering those IELTS listening hurdles. You with me?
Absolutely. We're going to unpack the test, the tricks, the strategies, everything.
Perfect. So, first things first, what exactly is this IELTS beast?
Okay, so IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System.
Catchy.
Yeah, not the most creative name, but basically it's the test if you're thinking about studying, working, living, anything in an English-speaking country.
Makes sense. It's like the gatekeeper to all these opportunities.
Exactly, and the listening section is a big part of it.
Okay, so paint me a picture. What does this listening test actually look like?
All right, so picture this. 40 questions, bam, thrown at you across 4 sections.
40 questions. Wow. That's a lot to keep track of.
It is. In each section, it gets a little tougher. You start with everyday chit-chat, casual conversations.
Okay, so far so good.
Right. But then, by section 4, they hit you with a full-on academic lecture.
Oh, wow. So the difficulty really ramps up.
Oh, yeah. And here's the kicker. Are you ready for this?
Hit me.
You only hear the recordings once E.
Once E. No rewinds, no replays.
Nope. Just like real life.
Okay, that definitely adds a layer of pressure. So it's not just about understanding the words, it's about processing them quickly and accurately, all while staying calm and focused.
Exactly. It's a mental game as much as a language test. You got to be present, be sharp, and, you've got to be an active listener.
Active listening, so not just letting the words wash over you, but really engaging with the information, picking out those key details, anticipating what's coming next.
Exactly. It's almost like detective work, You're piecing together clues to solve the puzzle.
Okay, I'm liking this detective analogy. Now, let's talk about the types of questions you might encounter on this listening quest. We've got your classic multiple choice, always a fun game of spot the distractor, as you mentioned earlier.
Ugh, those distractors. Designed to trip you up.
Right. And then we've got matching, which is all about connecting ideas, right? Like a master wordsmith.
Right. And then there's note completion, where those word limits can really get you. Seriously, you've got to be precise. I actually remember this one time.
Oh, do tell. A good IELTS anecdote. I'm all ears.
So there was this note completion question, right? And it was describing an apartment, and I wrote down charming 1-bedroom, thinking, oh, that's nice and descriptive.
It sounds harmless enough.
Right, but the word limit was 2 words. Lost points for charming.
Ouch. A harsh lesson in brevity.
It was.
Yeah.
So yeah, those word limits, they're serious business. Practice condensing your answers, make them super concise.
Great advice. So note completion. Be ruthless, be precise. Got it. What else do we have in our arsenal of question types?
Okay, so we've also got form completion, labeling diagrams or maps, and sentence completion. Each one needs a slightly different approach, a different set of skills.
It's like having a whole toolkit of listening weapons. Now, you mentioned distractors earlier, and I think this is a good place to dig a little deeper. For someone who might not be familiar with the IELTS battlefield, what exactly makes these distractors so tricky?
Okay, imagine this. You've got a multiple choice question about travel plans, right?
Yeah.
They might throw in several possible destinations just to mess with you. You hear those options and your brain's like, ooh, that sounds plausible, and bam, you fall right into their trap.
Sneaky. So it's like a linguistic game of smoke and mirrors. They're trying to lead you astray with those plausible sounding but ultimately incorrect options.
Exactly. And it's not just about understanding the English. It's about understanding the game, the strategy.
It's like you're playing chess with the examiners, anticipating their moves and outsmarting their tactics.
Exactly. And that's what makes the IELTS listening section so challenging, but also, kind of exciting. It's a test of your mental agility, your focus, your resilience.
Okay, so we've got the clock ticking, we've got those sneaky distractors lurking about, and we only get one shot at hearing the audio. How do you even begin to stay calm and focused amidst all that pressure?
It's tough, no doubt about it. But I'll tell you, what really helped me was mindfulness. Just take a deep breath, center yourself before the listening section starts. Visualize success.
It's like hitting that pause button in a chaotic video game, taking a moment to gather yourself before diving back into the action.
Exactly. And just like in a video game, don't dwell on past mistakes. Missed a question. No biggie. Just move on, refocus, and tackle the next one. Dwelling on it won't help.
Okay, so we've got this mental reset button. We're being mindful. We're treating it like a strategic game. What other insider tips do you have, especially for those tricky question types?
Well, let me tell you about this one technique that really helped me with multiple choice questions. It's all about elimination.
Elimination, huh?
Yeah, like before the audio even starts, I'd look at those answer choices, read them carefully, underline keywords, look for the little tiny differences in meaning.
Ah, so it's not just about finding the right answer, it's about weeding out the wrong ones first. Smart.
Exactly. It narrows things down, especially when those distractors are trying to trick you. And here's another tip. Don't just jump on the first answer that sounds okay.
Oh, I've totally been guilty of that.
Right. But the examiners, they love to throw in those early distractors. They sound good at first, but then, boom, they're wrong.
So patience is key. Wait for the speaker to really confirm or deny your suspicions before you lock in that answer.
Yep. It's like being a detective again, right?
Mm.
Gathering all the evidence before you make the call.
Love it. Okay, so what about note completion? Those word limits, they can be brutal.
Tell me about it. I've learned that lesson the hard way.
Any advice on how to avoid those traps?
Concise communication. Think of it like sending a telegram back in the day.
Ah, back when every word cost money.
Exactly. You had to get straight to the point. So with no completion, it's the same idea. Just the essentials. Names, dates, facts. No flowery language.
So less is more. Get rid of the fluff, focus on those core details.
Absolutely. And practice. The more you practice, the better you'll get at condensing information, staying within those limits.
Makes sense. Practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now, let's talk maps. Labeling diagrams or maps, those can be tricky.
They can, yeah. Especially if you're not used to processing spatial information quickly. But here's what I do. Before the audio starts, I take a good look at the map or diagram. Familiarize yourself with it. Landmarks, compass directions, any existing labels, Get the lay of the land.
So it's like setting the stage in your mind before the action starts. Then you can layer the audio information on top of that mental map.
Right. And as you listen, try to visualize yourself moving through that space, following the speaker's directions. Pay attention to words like north, south, left, right, all those spatial cues.
That's great advice. It makes it so much more engaging too, right? Instead of just passively listening, you're actively creating a mental picture.
Exactly. Now, sentence completion. Those can feel a bit like, like solving a puzzle,
Oh, totally. Sometimes it feels like you're searching for that one missing piece to complete the picture.
Right. But here's the thing. Don't just treat them like fill in the blanks. Before you even start listening, try to understand the overall meaning of the sentence. What's the context? What kind of information is missing?
Ah, so it's about seeing the bigger picture, understanding the context, and then finding the words that fit both grammatically and logically.
You got it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the answer might not be a direct quote from the audio. You might have to rephrase things, use synonyms to make the sentence grammatically correct and make sense in the context.
So it's like being a linguistic detective again, right?
Right.
Piecing together those clues and using your language skills to craft the perfect solution.
Exactly. Speaking of language skills, let's be real. The IELTS throws a lot of different accents at you.
Oh, yeah. It's like a global accent party. British, American, Australian, you name it. How do you even prepare for that?
Honestly, immersion. Podcasts, movies, news from different countries, anything you can get your hands on. The more you listen to different accents, the better your ear will become at picking up those subtle differences.
It's like training your ears to become multilingual within English itself.
Right. And remember, everyone has an accent. It's what makes language interesting. The key is to just be comfortable with that variety, with all those different ways of speaking.
I love that perspective. Okay, so we're embracing the accent adventure. But what about those moments when you just can't quite catch a word or a phrase? It's easy to panic in those situations.
Oh, I know. But here's the thing. Don't dwell on it. Seriously, most of the time, the context will give you enough clues to figure out what you missed. Think about it. In real conversations, we don't always catch every single word, but we still understand, right?
That's true. It's like when you're reading and you skim over a word you don't know, but you can still understand the sentence as a whole.
Exactly. And if you're really struggling, try paying attention to the speaker's tone of voice, their body language. If you can see them, that is. Nonverbal cues can be really helpful.
So it's all about becoming a holistic listener, paying attention to all the cues, both verbal and nonverbal.
Now, time management. That's another big one.
Yeah.
You've got those 40 questions, and the clock is ticking.
Time pressure is definitely a real factor, especially when you only get one shot at the audio.
Yep. So here's a tip. Use that time before each section wisely. While the instructions are being read, scan those questions. Get a sense of what's coming, note those key words.
So it's like getting a preview of the battlefield, strategizing your approach before the action starts.
Exactly. And as you're listening, try to anticipate the answer. Stay ahead of the game so you don't panic when you realize you've missed something.
It's like being a detective again. Right. Predicting the outcome before the big reveal.
Yep. And if you get stuck on a question, don't waste time on it. Mark it, move on, come back to it later if you have time.
Yeah.
Remember, it's better to have an answer, even a guess, for every question than to leave any blank.
Okay, that's great advice. It's like playing a game of strategy, focusing on securing those easy points first and then coming back for the trickier ones if you have time.
Now, let's talk about note-taking. This one is huge E for listening comprehension, A-N-D for managing those word limits.
Note-taking, yes. I'm always trying to improve my note-taking skills, but how do you do it effectively when you only hear the audio once? It seems like you'd have to be a speed-writing champion to keep up.
You do have to be quick, yeah. But here's the key. Don't try to write down every single word. Focus on capturing those essential keywords, phrases, the stuff that'll help you answer the questions.
So it's more about creating a mental map of the information than a verbatim transcript.
Right. And as you practice, try using abbreviations, symbols, even little diagrams to represent ideas. It's like creating your own little shorthand code.
Okay, so we're creating our own listening hieroglyphics. I love it. But what about those times when you hear a word or a phrase you've never heard before? How do you deal with those vocabulary roadblocks?
That's a great question. And honestly, it happens to everyone. Even native English speakers come across new words sometimes. The trick is to learn how to infer meaning from context.
So it's like being a word detective, using the clues around the unknown word to figure out what it means.
Right. Use the surrounding words, the phrases, the overall context to crack the code.
That's a really helpful tip. And speaking of decoding, what about those pre-exam jitters? Exam nerves? They can be a real beast.
Oh, tell me about it. But here's the thing. Preparation is your best weapon against nerves. The more confident you are in your skills, the less anxiety you'll feel.
So knowledge is power, right? It's like having a mental shield to deflect those arrows of self-doubt.
Exactly. And in the days leading up to the exam, take care of yourself. Sleep, good food, all that good stuff. It's like training for a marathon. You wouldn't run a marathon without fueling your body and getting enough rest.
True, true. Treat your brain like an athlete. It needs fuel and rest to perform at its best.
And on exam day, arrive early. Give yourself time to settle in, take some deep breaths, get into a positive mindset.
It's like easing into the pool instead of jumping in head first. Give your brain time to adjust to the environment.
And remember, a little bit of nervousness is normal. It can actually help you focus. Think of it as a boost of energy.
So it's not about eliminating nerves altogether. It's about channeling them into a positive force.
Right. And if you start to feel overwhelmed, take a few deep breaths. Remind yourself of all the hard work you've put in. Focus on the task at hand. It's like hitting the pause button on those spiraling thoughts and bringing your attention back to the present moment.
I love that analogy. Taking a time out, regrouping, and then refocusing with a fresh perspective. Okay, so now let's get into some specific strategies for maximizing your score on the IELTS listening section.
Okay, let's get tactical. One thing that really helped me was paying close attention to the introductions for each section.
The introductions, what do you mean?
So the speaker, they'll often give you some context, right? About the topic, the speakers, the situation. It's like setting the scene before the action starts.
Ah, so it's like getting a preview of the story, a little background information to set the stage for what you're about to hear.
Yep. And as you're listening, try to anticipate the answer. It'll help you stay engaged and avoid those "oh no, I missed it" moments.
It's like being a detective again, using those clues to predict what's going to happen next.
And here's another big one. Don't get hung up on trying to memorize every single word. Focus on understanding the overall meaning. The IELTS, they want to see that you can comprehend spoken English, not that you can regurgitate every word you hear.
So it's about understanding the big picture, the main ideas, the connections between different pieces of information.
Right. And don't be afraid to use your intuition. If you're not sure of an answer, make an educated guess. Sometimes your gut feeling is right on the money.
It's like tapping into that inner wisdom, trusting your instincts and your knowledge to guide you through those moments of uncertainty. Now, let's talk distractions. I think we've all been there. You're trying to focus, and then, bam, your mind wanders off on some random tangent. It's like our brains have a mind of their own sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Distractions happen. But the key is to manage them, right?
Yeah.
So if you can, find a quiet place to take the test.
Create your own little listening sanctuary.
Exactly. Minimize those external distractions. And for those internal distractions, those pesky thoughts, mindfulness can be really helpful.
Mindfulness, so like being aware of those distractions as they arise, but not getting swept away by them.
Right. Just gently acknowledge the distraction and then redirect your focus back to the audio.
It's like gently guiding your attention back to center stage, refocusing the spotlight on the information that matters most.
And remember, it's normal for your mind to wander. It happens to everyone. The key is to develop that awareness and the skills to manage those distractions effectively.
It's like becoming the conductor of your own mental orchestra, directing your attention with intention and skill. Okay, so let's get back to those specific strategies for acing the IELTS listening section.
All right, tip number 1. Pay attention to those key words in each question.
Keywords. You mean like the nouns, verbs, the essential words that give you clues about what to listen for.
Exactly. Those key words, they're like signposts pointing you towards the right answer.
It's like having a mental treasure map guiding you to the specific information you need to unearth.
Right. And again, try to anticipate the answer before it's explicitly stated. Use those keywords, use the context to make predictions.
Like a detective, always one step ahead.
And here's another one we've talked about before. Don't get caught up in trying to remember every single word. Focus on understanding the overall meaning of what you're hearing.
It's like capturing the essence of a story rather than getting lost in the details of every sentence.
Right. It's about comprehension, not memorization.
So understanding the big picture, the main ideas, the connections between different points.
Exactly. And if you're unsure of an answer, don't be afraid to trust your gut. Use your intuition and your background knowledge to make an educated guess.
It's like tapping into that inner wisdom, that reservoir of knowledge and experience that we all carry within us. Okay, so what about those moments when you encounter a word or a phrase that you've never heard before? Those unfamiliar words can be a real stumbling block, especially in a high-pressure situation like the IELTS.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It's like hitting a brick wall in the middle of a conversation. But the good news is, you don't have to let those unfamiliar words completely derail you. The key is to develop this skill, this ability to infer meaning from context.
Okay, context. So, like using the surrounding words, the sentences, the situation to figure out what that mystery word means.
Exactly. It's like being a detective, gathering clues. And don't forget about word roots, prefixes, suffixes. Sometimes just breaking down the word can help you unlock its meaning.
It's like having a linguistic toolkit. So we're word detectives armed with our trusty toolkits. I love it. Okay, let's talk accents. The IELTS throws a whole bunch of different accents at you, right? British, American, Australian. It's like a global accent tour.
It is. And the best way to prepare for that, expose yourself to as many accents as possible before the test.
Makes sense. Podcasts, movies, news from different countries, anything goes.
Exactly. The more you listen to different accents, the more comfortable you become.
It's like giving your ears a passport to the world of English. Now, what about when you just completely blank on a question? Like your mind goes totally empty. What do?
It happens. The worst thing you can do is panic. Just take a deep breath, move on to the next question. You can always come back to it later.
Okay, so don't get stuck. Keep moving. Good advice. Any other tips for managing that time pressure?
Let's see. Oh, this one's important. During the test, if you hear something that sounds like the answer, but you're not 100% sure, don't second-guess yourself too much. Go with your gut.
Trust your instincts.
Yeah. It's better to put down an answer, even if you're not completely certain, than to leave it blank.
Okay, so make a decision and move on. Don't dwell on it.
Right. And oh, here's another tip for those multiple choice questions. Sometimes the answer choices are really similar, like tiny little differences in wording.
Oh, I hate those. It's like they're trying to trick you with those subtle variations.
They are. So pay close attention to the wording of both the question A and D, the answer choices. Look for those keywords, those little nuances that differentiate one choice from another.
It's like a game of linguistic. Where's Waldo?
Exactly. Okay, one last tip, and this is a big one. Practice as much as you can.
Practice, practice, practice. The golden rule of test prep.
It is.
Ah.
Take those practice tests. Familiarize yourself with the format. Get comfortable with the timing. The more you practice, the more confident you'll feel on test day.
Couldn't agree more. Preparation is key. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here today. We've talked about the structure of the IELTS listening test, those pesky distractors, active listening techniques, time management strategies, and so much more.
We've given them a lot to think about.
We have, but at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is to approach this challenge with a positive attitude and a willingness to learn.
Absolutely. It's a journey.
It is. And just like any journey, there will be bumps along the road. But with the right preparation, the right mindset, and the right strategies, you can absolutely conquer this IELTS listening beast.
You got this.
To our listener out there, best of luck on your IELTS journey. We're cheering you on every step of the way.